So in these primitive cultures where, women may be topless, what we would consider in our culture nudity, missionaries would come into these territories. This is what John Paul's commenting on.
Okay.
And project their own Western understanding of modesty on these women. And these women began to realize, if I cover my breasts in a certain way, it actually draws attention to them in ways that they weren't previously exciting that attention.
This is why lingerie is often more sexually exciting than a naked woman.
Yes.
Because the same thing's being done.
Same thing's being done.
And of course it can be done appropriately and inappropriately. I wonder what the native woman would do when a stranger bursts in.
I have a funny story that's kind of along those lines. This was told me by a missionary priest who was in a primitive culture in Africa where the women were topless.
Yeah.
And they wore a straw skirt, but nothing under the straw skirt.
Yeah.
And he set up his little, hut, his rectory hut, and he was new to the area. He was just getting accustomed to how to deal with topless women. And this woman comes into his hut with her straw skirt and her exposed breasts, and he was uncomfortable, and she could tell he was a little uncomfortable, and he kind of motioned, could you do something about, and so she just took her straw skirt and lifted it up to cover her breasts.
Oh my goodness gracious. He's like, no, that's fine. Thanks, I guess.
So it just goes to show, and John Paul is very sensitive about this, that, when you cross cultures, it becomes all the more difficult to talk about these things. There are principles that hold fast, but there are applications of the principles that are different in different cultures. And the principle that holds fast is this: are you dressing or behaving in such a way with the intention to arouse lust in others? That is what we can say with certainty is immodest. How that principle gets applied in a given culture, in a given time, will vary.
There was a great advert on, I forget what it was about, but it was about when does a Speedo become underwear? And it was a fella walking from the beach, and we call them togs in Australia. So I think it was like togs, 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 togs. And you're seeing him walking.
That's funny.
And then he starts going down a street, but he's still kind of close enough to the beach that it's still okay. And then eventually people are horrified. When does it become... Togs, 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 undies.
Undies, yes. See, John Paul addresses this too. I don't have the quote here, but he says, you also have to understand the context. He says a bathing suit when you're swimming is not immodest. But if you were to wear a bathing suit walking down the street, exactly this example.
Inappropriate, perhaps.
It's, yes.
Maybe immodest.
And maybe it's inappropriate and maybe immodest.
I see.